You want to take your quad development to another dimension, build more strength and resilience, and have fun learning a new skill? Then stay tuned, friend, because in this video, we're looking at an old school, lesser known squat variation that has been regaining popularity in recent years. Let's get into the barbell hack squat.
So I posted this random clip of me doing a barbell hack squat a few years ago, and there were three basic types of responses. 1. What's it working relative to more familiar squat patterns, i.e. a front and back squat? 2. How do I do it without the bar getting stuck on my hamstrings and glutes on the way up? And 3. Doggo!
Slayer meant to ask if this variation would build the quads more than front squats. The short answer is it depends. What's your relative training experience with each of the movements, how you're performing each movement, like the tempo, the range of motion, if you're using one type of grip versus another type of grip, how you're programming each movement, and so on. But if you're doing either of these movements, I don't really see one being vastly superior to the other. I don't think it's a question of which one is better. It's which one is right for you based on your goals and where you are currently at in your training journey.
Even if you're all caked up, the bar shouldn't be getting stuck on your glutes. It should be sliding right over them like sweet buttered buns. But in all seriousness, with this variation, the bar should actually stop right around the glute ham tie-in and not sliding over the glutes at all. If it's hitting your butt, your grip might be too wide. Pro tip, if you know you'll be doing these, get yourself a sick pair of leggings to help the bar glide. If you're rocking them short shorts and your legs be sweating, things are gonna get sticky like a passionate tussle with the boys in peak summer heat. So to avoid the bar sticking on the way up, I recommend starting the movement from the top. This will help you get a better sense of what the bar path should feel like. Set the bar up right under your cheeks. Hands can start just outside of the hips, not so far out that you look like a super heavyweight strongman standing up a conventional deadlift, not so close that your hands are hitting your legs at the bottom, just right. You want that Goldilocks grip, at least to start with. For me, that position is hands right outside of my legs, so when I'm looking in the mirror, I can see a bit of space between my arms and torso. For you, it may be different depending on how your body is built. Just play around with it. Take the empty bar for a few reps with different grips and see what feels right to you. Or just try all the grips. Have fun with the experiment, learn what you can, and see how many different ways there are to get strong. There isn't always necessarily a best way. If deadlifts and snatch grip deadlifts, or Zercher deadlifts, can coexist, then varying grip hack squats can too. This version of the hack squat is kind of like a hybrid between a front squat and a conventional deadlift. Front squat in that the knees should move first, and both in that the arms should be doing very little aside from just stabilizing the bar. Think of this as a deep knee bend. If you know, you know. Just practice getting in reps with the empty bar for a few sets. Slowly add weight in 5 to 10 pound increments, and you can increase the jumps you take as you get more proficient with the movement.
For McKee, we asked about the benefits of these relative to front squats, back squats, deadlifts, and farmer squats. And I didn't know what farmer squats were, so I looked them up, and it turns out that they are just another name for a dumbbell squat. Dumbbell in each hand, and you squat. Also known as my least favorite version of a squat of all time. Even more than a Bulgarian split squat, I don't like it, unless you add a jump into it, in which case it becomes cool again. This variation of the barbell hack squat isolates the quad more than any other bilateral squat, with maybe the exception of a heels elevated squat. Those two feel to me pretty similar in terms of quad activation, especially if you go really slow with the heels elevated. Okay, so while visually this looks closest to a deadlift, or closer to a deadlift than a front squat or a back squat, what's actually happening is probably furthest from a deadlift. Well, a deadlift is getting like your back, your hamstrings, your glutes, your adductors, your grip, of course, and there's very little quad involvement. This is kind of the opposite of that, where it's mostly quads, relatively small amount of the hamstring and glute compared to the quad. Doing this. But ultimately, it's just another movement option that you can choose. But if we're talking about a lifelong journey here, a lifetime of strength and health and wellness, then I think this is definitely something to consider including in your movement library. Because while one squat variation may not be better than another, being able to move with strength and confidence through a variety of ranges of motion, I think is better than the alternative, which is being limited in the ways that you can move with strength and confidence through all different sorts of ranges of motion and experience all different sorts of types of stimulus throughout your life. It doesn't have to be everything at once in one training program, but over the long haul, I mean, we can be here for a while. Why not have all this extra variety to choose from? Unless you're somebody who just likes to have the same thing over and over and over again forever. Not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if you're someone like me who tends to kind of get bored with doing the same old thing all the time, there are other movement options out there that are not just the typical squat, bench, deadlift. And it's some of those that I hope to explore further on this channel. Could you do me a favor? If you're enjoying the video so far, if you're getting anything out of it, hopefully learning something, maybe being a little entertained, would you like the video? Maybe consider sharing it with somebody who you think might appreciate it as well. And if you want to look at other movements like these, then subscribe and we'll keep doing weird exercise movement breakdowns. As far as programming this goes, that all depends on your training experience and your goals. Unless you have a specific reason for wanting to improve your barbell hack squat numbers, there's probably not a hugely important reason for you to include it as like your main lift and build up to working super heavy on it. But it could still prove beneficial to you as an accessory movement. You know, if you want to get some kind of leg extension type work in, but you don't have a leg extension machine, this can be an option that you go to. Where you fit it into with the rest of your training will depend on your goals, your comfort and familiarity with the movement, and what the rest of your training program looks like. Sets and reps will also depend on your goals and your experience. The more experienced you are, the more flexibility you have to play around with the different load schemes and rep ranges. The newer you are, the better you are off probably sticking to light to moderate weights and rep ranges until your gains start to slow down a little bit, and then you need to vary the stimulus again. If I was doing this on a leg day or squat day, I would probably put this in first as part of my warm-up, because when you're trying to learn a new skill, you want to be the freshest when you're doing that. You don't want to be fatigued and trying to learn a new skill or learn a new movement. So include it as part of your warm-up. Do a couple of warm-up sets of the bar, maybe do 2 or 3 light sets just to kind of work on the getting comfortable and familiar with it, feeling some activation where you want to feel it, make sure that's all good, and then jump in to your like more serious or heavier stuff. If you're already familiar with these, either you've practiced and refined your technique, or maybe you're just a prodigy, then you might consider having these be your second exercise after your main instead of as part of the warm-up. Or you could just make it your main lift for several weeks and see how it goes. There's not really a right or a wrong, unless maybe you're training for some kind of competitive sport. Otherwise, these are just guidelines for things to think about when you're programming it. It doesn't have to be a hard and fast rule that this is the only way to do it, and if you deviate, then you're gonna get suboptimal gains. Again, we talk about the lifelong journey, that we're gonna be doing this for a while. We gotta have a lot of different ways to be able to do things to keep it fresh and exciting as we go forward through the journey. So don't be afraid to experiment with it. Play around with how you program it, how you actually physically perform it, with what grip you're using, what tempo you're using, if you're gonna go heels elevated or some other variation of it. There's a lot of possibilities that you can explore, and this is just a taste. You're just dipping your toe in with this video, but go out and actually do the thing. Make it your own. Make it part of your life. You know, if you can make movement a part of your life where it's something that just feels good, then you're not gonna have that toxic relationship with the gym, with working out, that, oh man, I don't want to, but I've got to. It feels good, you want to do it. It fuels itself. That doesn't mean that you're never going to have days where you just don't want to, and that's fine too. I'm not saying that it's always going to be positive, but the more we can kind of step away from that, our toxic relationship with our health, with our wellness, with our fitness, all of these dimensions, these weird hang-ups we have with it, where we have to do everything perfectly. The way we think about movement and exercise is just that it's excruciating, or it sucks, or we don't enjoy it. You know, there's so much that we can do to celebrate our lives and our bodies through movement, and this hack squat is a fantastic way to do that. All right, that's enough sitting around learning about this movement. The next step is to decide if this is something that you actually want to incorporate into your training. First, ask why you would do it and how it would benefit you. We've already talked about some of those reasons in this video, but those are just some of my reasons. You gotta find your own reasons, and maybe our reasons are gonna be the same, maybe not, but either way, find your reasons for doing it, how it's gonna benefit you, and then go from there. So if you answer that, and you do feel compelled to incorporate it into your training, then it's time to figure out how to actually put it into your training. When you're gonna do it in the workout. What are your sets and reps gonna be? What are your weights gonna be? All these things, figuring out the logistics of the programming. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, subscribe for more movement breakdowns like this one. What do you wanna see next? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you there.